So when we meet real tragedy in life or really bad times, down times, scary times, you can react in two ways. You can either lose hope and fall into self-destructive habits, diminish ourselves and hope to be saved and hope to be rescued, or we can use a challenge to find our inner strength. Let's see what is possible within that context. This is a place where those who suspect they're innately wise, brilliant and powerful come to learn how to transform their lives, one cognition, one realization and one blinding flash of the obvious at a time. We are the innovators, the record breakers, the world makers and creators of all kinds. We supersede the suppressive worldview of mass ignorance and awaken the strength within. We are waking up to our innate secrets. My name is Dr. Mark Postles and welcome to the Innate Secrets podcast. I like to visit from time to time the Dalai Lama. He comes up with some really, really cool things and he posts quite regularly on Twitter. So if you want to get hold of that, of his Twitter account and follow him, he's most days he's putting out something that's really relevant to the times. There's a couple of statements he made here which I really love. It's compassion suits our physical condition, whereas anger, fear and distrust are harmful to our well-being. Therefore, just as we learn the importance of physical hygiene to physical health, to ensure healthy minds, we need to learn some kind of emotional hygiene. Now, I think that's really addresses the context of fear, which many of us are succumbing to at this point in time. And probably, to be fair, any time that we get exposed to an idea, a word, a concept, a vision, a sound that triggers the hindbrain, we go into fear. We go into our reptilian part, which has served us for millions of years. So there's a part of us that goes, millions, at least a lot of years, hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands at the very least. And we go into this response. It's a stimulus response. So the challenge here is to be able to separate the fear-provoking disturbance or noise and see it for what it's worth, take it in, be able to put it into our forebrain, into our quadrant 1 and 4 part, and process it without causing the reptilian brain, the quadrant 2 and 3 part, to go into overdrive and to run us and run our emotional hygiene. So, whilst in this current coronavirus, in other words, /flu epidemic, which, in many areas of the world, there's some hotspots and they're in many cases being generalized out to every other area of the world. And I think we have to look at this as a local phenomena and act locally. I think that would be an appropriate measure, and it's something that some governments are following to address this, rather than closing down the world. And this has huge effects, not just as far as the economic health, but the mental health of people, emotional health of people. If people get into unemployment, then there's a far higher risk of them suiciding, that violence goes up, that domestic violence particularly, that children suffer and so forth. So there's a lot of sequelae to that, far, far worse, I would suggest, than a pandemic. So anyway, the Dalai Lama sort of put it from this position that the compassion, which in this context he was speaking about internal compassion, and it's the first beneficiary of compassion is always oneself. So when compassion or warm-heartedness arises in us and our focus shifts away from our own narrow self-interest, it's as if we to open this door. It reduces fear and boosts confidence and brings us inner strength. And so by looking at our trust issues and reducing any distrust, then we can open others up as well, and it brings us a sense of connection to others and a sense of purpose, and people pick up on that. So within that, then the key area, I think, is in purpose. It's in defining your stance. You see, we all have a position on life. We have a position on who we are, where we sit within this amazing kaleidoscope of life, and it's about what's your calling and why you're here. So this is the stance, and how do you make sense of the world? Are you in a hostile environment, or are you in a supportive environment? Are virus bad? Are bacteria bad? And it used to be, when I was at chiropractic college some 40 odd years ago, we were taught that virus and bacteria were bad, and that you've got to kill them wherever you can. And that to some degree has been perpetuated, and we've actually created this antiseptic environment in many respects, and we know, and there's good science to support, that that's not useful in people developing their immune system, and children get and adults get many diseases now as a result of the environment being too clean. But it's also becoming obvious that bacteria and virus are a necessary part of our ecosystem. And we have what could be called a virome. We have a collection of viruses within us, which is DNA and RNA particles that have proteins around them, and they interact with us, and they, as with any seed, are attracted to areas that have food for them. Now, it's also recognised that bacteria now could outnumber the number of cells we have in our body. So in other words, if we really wanted to look from that position, that you are not you are a bunch of bacteria. The majority of you is bacteria, rather than what you think of as your flesh and blood. So it's a fascinating thing to look at this, because I think throughout history, man searched for the meaning of life, and it's often been outside. And I think this current opportunity gives us a chance to look for the meaning of life, and maybe start to integrate it more to the inside. So, the outside in phenomena of looking to the outside and saying, these bacteria are around when this particular condition's happening, therefore the bacteria cause the condition, is sort of like saying, well, those flies are around that dirty rubbish bin, therefore the flies cause the dirty rubbish bin. And yet if the rubbish bin was clean, the flies would go in, come back out again, they wouldn't hang around because there's nothing for them to eat. So, and this is where I think we see people who have a low resistance in their life, they've got a decreased life expression, are having challenges with a flu. And coronavirus is essentially a flu. It's just been renamed, and that is the current flu for this season. It's already morphed and changed and shown up different variations already, and it will continue to do that. So that next year there'll be a different flu, as has happened throughout the history of mankind. I would suggest that there is certain optimum times for that, and then the hosts are recipients, and we even use the word contract. People contract the flu, and so that's a contract is an agreement between two. So what is this agreement? What is the agreement that we have with this? And if we look at it from the position of defining our stance, then I think it's important to review our philosophy and see, well, what is it that we do stand for? And the fact is that we all have a philosophy. Now, whether we've gone into it and torn it apart and put it together in a way that is appropriate for us or not is inconsequential. The point is that we have a philosophy, and it's a way of thinking about something. It's a way of comprehending the world. It's the quadrant one part, the right forebrain that looks at the possibilities and brings meaning to that. And when it resonates with the heart, then that gets more and more sealed in. So, the thoughts that we have and the way of thinking we have about something then starts to become a pattern. And that pattern then starts to ingrain a philosophical view of existence that is the way we go about doing our life. So, regardless of how strongly one denies the illusion they're not philosophically driven, that we do have a philosophy. And just observe the way that person may behave, and it will tell you their philosophy. So at this current time, there's, if you like, I would suggest two philosophies at play. One is an outside-in philosophy, the other is an inside-out philosophy. And so, there's one that says, well, we don't have... we're at effect of the world, and that viruses will cause us sickness, or bacteria will cause us sickness, and we must wage war against them. And they're out there to get us, and so we better, produce drugs or some method where we can stop those things from getting to us. And it's sort of like a medieval concept. And it sees the world as a separate series of parts. It's not integrated. It's not getting above and looking down. That style of thinking is looking at the body as being separate parts, as various organisms and pathogens as being separate, and it's not a systems-oriented thing. It's sort of like, the blind men touching the elephant, and one says, well, an elephant is like a rope because they're holding the tail, and elephants is like a hose if they're holding the trunk, and an elephant's like a tree trunk if it's holding the leg. And it's broken down into different segments, and so there's a treatment for this and a treatment for that. So it's a this for that, with the optimum outcome to reduce symptoms. And so it sees symptoms as being the devil. Symptoms are the evil thing, and we want to get rid of the symptoms. Well, that's not necessarily the position of another way of thinking, which would be to say, well, we have this energy that manifests into physical form, and we are essentially energetic beings as human beings, and we interact with all these other energies of the planet. When the energies get out of balance, then cells of our body start to fire in ways that are individuating. They're not part of the system anymore. They start to break down. But if our energy is vibrating at a coherence that incorporates all the functions of the body, then we have an integrated system. And this is it's a really old idea. It comes from a ballistic perspective. But what's neat about this is that in more recent times, the more recent sciences are starting to recognise that this is a very accurate phenomena. And so the question is, what is the state of energy? And this, if we're operating from this philosophy, what is the state of energy of the individual? And we know that there are a number of things that influence the energy of a person. And one of them is our brain, spine, and nerve system. The brain, spine, nerve system is a coordinating factor that affects the energy of the systems of the body. and there's an immediate relationship between the thoughts that we have, and we would break it into maybe two groups. There's the qualitative, and that is the quality of the thoughts that we have and the quality of the emotions that we do, and that is mediated and directly charged by our philosophy. If our philosophy is that things are dangerous, that there's unseen things that'll kill us all, then that that changes the vibration of the body and actually weakens the host, which is the cells of our body and the systems of our body. If we have a trusting and loving environment, then the cells of the body and the organs and the systems will expand to reflect that. So that is a different vibration, and that is a harmonic that is consistent with life and therefore strength. And so the opportunities for bacteria and virus is not the same. When in a weakened system, there's a high opportunity for, in a damaged system, there's a high opportunity for bacteria and virus. In a low or high functioning system, there's a low opportunity for these pathogens to take up and set up house and have families, because there's not enough for them to eat. So there's a distinction there in terms of philosophy. And I think it's really useful if we could really visit what is your foundational philosophy. What is your philosophy on life and health and people and the world, and look at what it is that you would then do, because this determines how you go about it. Like a piecemeal approach is that you treat symptoms as they show up, and that's sort of like an approach where you probably say, well, if some people got the symptom, then we're going to treat everyone. And so it's like a one size fits all. And that's a sort of a medieval science. And the other one is that we say, okay, well, everyone's an individual. Everyone expresses a different level. Everyone has a specific vibe to them. And so we must have some sort of a personalized approach here. So there's got to be the right thing for the right person at the right time. And it could be, in terms of an infection, it could be a biochemical thing, it could be the right word at the right time. It could be the shift in the conditions, getting a person away from EMFs, getting the person away from toxic foods, or other external factors that are creating a dissonance in their body and in their life. So it's a compromised immune system from this position that would be the major task, rather than one size fits all. It's horses for courses, so to speak. So this is about making sure that in the upcoming time of craziness around us and fear being perpetrated, which is a violent means of influencing people. I mean, we've had the fear campaigns of HIV and the fear campaigns of terrorism and the fear campaigns of climate change, and so this does influence people, and it puts people into a lower state of vibration, which then becomes, and sometimes, a self-fulfilling prophecy. So be aware of this and define your stance. Take the stance that is appropriate for you. And I'm not saying what that stance should be. It's for you to discover that and to have a scrupulously logical discussion within yourself about that. It's about looking at this integrated view of existence that you have as a human being. And the fact that and I'm going to paraphrase, in fact, I'll see if I can find a quote here from Ayn Rand. Here we go. I think she stated it so cleanly in this one, that she says that philosophic system is an integrated view of existence. In other words, it looks at all aspects of existence. But as a human being, you have no choice about the fact that you need a philosophy. The only choice is whether you define your philosophy by a conscious, rational, disciplined process of thought and scrupulously logical deliberation, or you let your subconscious accumulate a junk heap of unwarranted conclusions, false generalizations, unidentified contradictions, undigested slogans, unidentified wishes, doubts, and fears. Now, that is classic for what's happening right at the moment. Is, do you think this thing through yourself and make your own logical choices out of your quadrant 1 and 4, or do you get into the mass hysteria and fear that is pervading the main channels of distribution at this point in time? So, and this is all thrown together by chance. That's undigested slogans, unidentified wishes, doubts, and fears, thrown together by chance, but integrated by your subconscious into a kind of mongrel philosophy, infused into a single solid weight, self-doubt, like a ball and chain in the place where your mind's wings should have grown. So I think that's it's a good message for today, is that, look, we are a product of our philosophy. And when we're looking at something like this, we must define our stance. So consider that over this week. If you're wanting some assistance with that, then sing out to us. Mark at theinnatemodel.com will get me, and we can have a bit of a chat about options on this one. So have hope, have love, have compassion. And the more you give, the more you get. So go out and touch people. I'm sure I'm using the wrong word there, because you can't physically touch them, which is another component of division. But what I mean would be touch their hearts. Touch a person's heart. Give them a phone call. Give them a tweet. Give them a message. Send them something, letting them know that you're thinking of them. And let's look at how people can work together to create a vibration of trust and of love, and overcome some of the opposition that is people are buying into. So have fun with it, and remember you are brilliant. Cheers.